This is part two of the series I'm doing on slavery and the church, lies and what you were not told. If you haven't watched the first part, I think you should watch it because it forms a very solid foundation for understanding what I'm doing. In this video, I'll be refuting the claim that there was consensus that it was okay in Christian circles that people should own slaves. I'm going to cite a situation before the slave trade and then during this transatlantic slave trade, because that's the main issue here. Okay. And I'm going to show you that there was division on the subject pre-transatlantic slave trade, even into the transatlantic slave trade. In the 11th to 12th century, you had St. Anselm, who was an archbishop of Canterbury. He had tried to suppress slavery in that he tried to stop it. There are other people too within the Christian circle that thought that it was normal and natural to be a slave and to own a slave. So before the transatlantic slave trade, you already had division, even in Christian circles, about the legitimacy of slavery as it pertains to Christianity's position on the issue. During the transatlantic slave trade, you had Pope Paul III issuing the Sublimis Deus in 1537, which declared that all peoples are human beings and have the right to their freedom and must not be enslaved. But of course, Emperor Charles V, according to the paper, called for its cancellation. You also had, just over 100 years later, Pope Urban VIII's pronouncement against slavery in 1639. Now, his was also opposed by the Portuguese government because they found it as a lucrative business. Even during the independence of the United States of America, which was in 1776, there was a lot of agitation to end slavery in the new nation that had just come out of being enslaved by the British. There were denominations that took measures against slavery. There were the Quakers, there was the Methodists, the American Methodists and Baptists, who banned slaveholding among their members. Those were the Presbyterian Church in 1818, for instance, declaring that slavery was against the law of God, but opposed its abolition. So you have people who are taking measures, even during the slave trade, to stop it. There were others who recognized or acknowledged that, yes, it was evil, but they didn't stop it. Why? Because it was economically lucrative. However, even during that time, there were those in the South, and I quote the paper, of the view that slavery was sanctioned by God. You have people who had already agreed in principle that slavery was wrong. But there were others that, even though they knew it in principle, that yes, it was morally wrong, they still did it because it was economically lucrative. Not all of them, but some of them. In summary, you have pre-transatlantic slave trade division within Christian circles on the legitimacy of slavery being morally right, and you have that lingering on even into the time of the transatlantic slave trade. You have movements to stop it. You have some denominations that acknowledge in principle that it was immoral and every human being had the right to freedom and should not be enslaved. But there were others that, even in principle, there were people who disagreed. But even practically, there were those that either acknowledged that, yes, in principle, it was wrong, but still did it because of the economic value it brought. And then there were those that did not agree with it in principle and still continued doing it because of the economic value that it brought. So at the end of the day, there was no unanimous agreement that slavery was okay